Hey everybody, Mandus here from Maximum Muscle Report, alongside Jose Raymond, Nate Spear. This is your Arnold Classic preview show, Open Bodybuilding. This is what everyone's waiting for, guys. Nate, what do you got? What are you looking for, man?
I mean, looks like an impressive lineup. You know, I'm pretty excited. A lot of guys from the Olympia top 5. You know what I mean? A lot of guys that are coming up. Some new guys that are just getting started that a lot of people have some hype on. There's a lot of good names, you know what I mean, that we haven't had for a lot of years, I feel like.
I saw somebody guest posing recently, and I know the pictures were out there. I was surprised. I know water and travel and plane. Big Roelly did not look like he was where he needed to be at this point in time, and especially coming off of a third-place finish at the Olympia. I had Roelly winning this show until I saw those pictures. I don't know if I'm still going to have him winning at the end of this show when we all put out our top 5 predictions. Jose, you saw the pictures and the video?
Yeah, I wasn't as turned off as everyone else by it. I've known Roelly for a long time. I know he's always a butterball, and 2-3 weeks out from a show is very different than game day.
Right.
You know, let me tell you an example. Last year at the Olympia, I saw him from 2 feet away backstage, and I'm like, he's huge, but it was nothing impressive to me. And then I text Cito. I go, how's Roelly look? He's like, ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, but he's not really sharp. And he's like, no, he's crazy. I'm like, really? Well, that's a pure example. You can't tell just from a picture or video or backstage or, you got to see him under the right lights with the oil, with the water pulled. So I ain't going to fall for this 3 week out guest posing thing. As far as I'm concerned, Roelly is still a front runner. I'm not worried about it. I think everyone's making a big deal about it because they got to have something to talk about.
Well, of course. Hey, what if we don't have something to talk about? We're not here, are we?
Well, just think of this. Think how much he changed from last year's Arnold to Australia in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was like a different person, like 22, 25 pounds.
Very true.
So I'm sure he can do it again. And if he does, he's going to be a front runner. Without a question, he's a front runner. But I'm not worried about it.
Jose, I'm glad you said what you said, because the last few years, weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend, just being at show after show after show after show for I don't know how many years now in a row, so often we hear on boards and people in discussions talking about pictures and videos, just this. And they'll take the best picture of one guy and put it next to the worst picture of another guy and say, see, what do you mean? I can't believe this is what the result was. This is rigged. And I say, unless you're there watching it live, you really have a very skewed perception of what you're looking at.
And you can't be in the 20th row either. You got to not only be there, but you got to be 10 feet away in the front row, in the press pit. Then I'll listen to you.
Right. I'm glad you're saying that, because I don't think very many people understand that. Sure, you understand it, Nate, you understand it. But for the majority of the people, they don't know that. So we hear so often, what were the judges really thinking? They were up close and personal. That's what they were thinking. They're getting a bird's eye view of what they need to look at. What else are you looking at, Jose, for this Arnold here? We're what, 8 days away? What do you expect to see?
Well, I'm extremely excited to see the return of Josh Lenartowicz.
Yes.
He hasn't competed in over a year and a half or so. And he's claiming to be somewhere around 275 to 280 on stage. That's a big boy, and he brings condition, round muscle, very complete, very well put together, and a crazy hard work ethic. he's the kind of guy, don't be surprised if he goes and takes an Olympia. He's that good. He can be that good. So I'm excited to see him. And ever on the rise, Kuklo, he's been consistently getting better the last 2 years. Obviously, William Bonac has something to prove. I think if William comes in 4 or 5 pounds lighter than he was at the Olympia, then he could take this show.
Jose, let me ask you, you're talking about Kuklo on the rise. Kuklo's been around for a long time. It seemed as if we were done hearing about him, and all of a sudden, like you said, popped back up 2 years ago and has shown well ever since then. As a matter of fact, a lot of people would argue that the last 2 years is the best versions of Steve Kuklo we've seen, and he's improving it. How does something like that happen to a guy who's been around for a long time, who appears to be near the end of his career, that all of a sudden there's a resurrection? The only other time I can think of that is the Blade, who, he had a faltering and then all of a sudden came back guns blazing.
Well, let me put this in perspective for you. Steve was an unbelievable 2-time teenage champion, teenage national champion. So he started getting a lot of notoriety at a very young age. And, they were calling him Mr. Olympia. He was on the cover of magazines at 25 years old. Well, now it seems like he's been around forever, but he's still younger than I was when I did my first pro show. And I had a great 10-year-long career. So there's no reason that he can't continue to get better for the next 8 years. He's got a lot left in the tank. People just think he's done because he's been a popular name for so long. He's still very young. So he finally put it together. He might have had a year or two where he was dicking off. He wasn't putting it all together 100%, whether it was moving or falling in love with his now wife or whatever the case may be. Now he's settled. He's focused. He's got the right combination of everything. He's a few years older, a little more mature, and he's getting the job done. I see no reason why he can't continue to get better for many years and be a threat this coming year, for sure.
Nate?
I think the big thing was, too, it sounds like he changed some training camp up and started working with, Gina Davis. And he started working with some new people. So I think that helps, too. And then also, like Jose said, settling down. I think he was pretty young when he started, because I remember even seeing Muscular Development. He was like on the cover, I think at 21 with like Antoine Billion or something. They're both like around the same age coming up, you know what I mean? So he's been around for a while, and sometimes, like Jose said, just maturing, you know what I mean? And sort of taking it more seriously, maybe. Not that he wasn't before, but you know what I'm saying? Sometimes the mindset of maturing as an adult, you know what I mean? Yeah. Sort of having more of a regimen definitely helps. Another guy I was thinking that I would like to see maybe is Lionel Backy, sort of like one of those, the guy we always talk about every show. If he nails it, you know what I mean? Can he come in and sort of sneak up and maybe place like a top 3? He has all the goods, but he sort of doesn't ever nail it with the conditioning and the dryness. You know what I mean? He sort of always has that problem. But he's another guy I want to see do really well, and Akeem Williams as well.
It's always interesting when we see other new guys that are up and coming, who have pretty shape and round muscle bellies like Raphael, but in a lineup like this, we're talking about Roelly, we're talking about Josh Lenartowicz. We haven't even mentioned Cedric McMillan, who's an Arnold Classic champion. We haven't even talked about Brandon Curry, who has just continuously improved and improved and improved. Is it that much harder for these guys to get any kind of a look, or is it them coming into a show just because they're honored to have the invite, or should some of these guys maybe not even accept an invite, knowing that, hey, it's tough standing next to some of these big boys that we're talking about here? Should they maybe be looking at shows like the Indy or Chicago and get their feet wet and grow into their division and get some momentum before they they try and bang heads with some of these big guys? Or do you have to take the invite? If you get invited, you have to go to the Arnold.
Well, it's interesting. It's like you said, it's like you got guys like a Luke Sandow, Raphael, even Akeem. These guys are going to be fighting to place pretty well. You know what I mean? These are really good bodybuilders. So it's a really good lineup where, you know, guys that would usually place maybe top 2 at maybe an Indie Pro are really going to struggle to place even in the top 6. You know what I mean?
I think that's not the mindset of a champion. You don't say, oh, I can't compete with these guys. I'll go do the Indie Pro. You know, that's not, you want to go against the best to see how you fare against the best. And guess what? This lineup, as good as it is, there's still, if these people don't come 100%, people are going to sneak by them. You know, Raphael can sneak into that top 4. You know, if Roelly's way off like people think he is, then Luke can sneak in. Kuklo can sneak in. I mean, there's even this little Russian kid that won the Arnold Amateur a couple of years ago. He's the roundest, craziest looking upper body I've seen in a long time. 25-year-old kid. You know, this show is as exciting as the show's been in many years because there is no definite, you know. And if Brandon looks anything like his pictures look, I mean, he looks photoshopped. That's how crazy he looks. Then we may have a new Ronnie Coleman type of champion. That guy is crazy looking, you know? So it's so exciting, the fact that anyone can win this show. You know, I was talking to Aceto the other day, and I said, Cedric is the only guy I know that can lose every shot. Is because someone in this lineup can beat him in pretty much every shot, whether it's a rear double, the rear lat, front side, whatever. But he can still win the show because he's that impressive. His presence, his stage presence, the way he is posing, the way he presents himself, he can lose every shot and still win the show. How crazy is that? You know, so that's what makes it exciting. So for anyone to say, man, Bonac's too good, I'll wait for Indy, that's crazy. You want to go in and see how you stand and get a call out next to Lenartowicz and Roelly. Can you imagine that for a young guy coming up and you get called out and even if you get called out in the quarter turns to be next to Lenartowicz and Bieke and
it's how you make a name. It's how you make a name, Jose. You know, nobody comes in with a name and is a front runner when you haven't done anything. But it's definitely something that people talk about. It's definitely going to be a mindset of some athletes, but like you said, it's not the mindset of a champion, and that goes across the board in any division. You get to find out who's really there to eventually be the best. And when you ask a question like that, some of them say, "Yeah, well, maybe I'm going to skip, or I'm going to pick this show or pick that show." That's when you start finding out where the cream is going to rise. So
guess what? Those guys never win shows anyway.
Of course.
Like, I'm going to wait for this one where I have a better chance. Guess what? You don't have a chance.
Right. Who do you got for your top 5?
My top 5 right away. Bonac, Roelly, Lenartowicz, Brandon, Cedric. That's it. That's 5.
Nate?
Oh, man, it's like we were saying, it's so interchangeable, you know. It's like who's on, who's not, you know. And I was actually pretty similar to Jose. I like Bonac taking it due to his Olympia appearance wasn't the best, you know what I mean. So I think he's sort of going to come in something to prove. Already won the Arnold, sort of has the confidence going in. And then I like Curry as number 2, just because from the Olympia he really made a name for himself, really showed out, placed in top 5, and just like looking immaculate. And he sort of keeps getting better. He's on that sort of like wave right now. So I can only assume, hopefully, from the Olympia, he'll get better as well. And then I like 3, Lenartowicz. Had some time off, which sort of worries me. I haven't seen too many pictures, so I'm not really sure. Like you said, I mean, pictures don't tell everything, but it gives you a good idea. But you can definitely tell the guy's freaking massive. That's for one thing. So he definitely won't be outsized. And then 4, I got Roelly. Definitely.
The video impacted your decision making.
What's that?
The video impacted your decision.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I get the whole, like, a lot of things change within certain hours, but I could see the same thing with sort of what Jose was saying with the Arnold last year in Australia. It could almost do the same thing. Like, he'll come in like really good, but probably won't be all the way there. and then maybe make some tweaks and come in Australia banging again. You know what I mean? Sort of thing. That's sort of I see it playing out, but obviously you never know. These guys change so quickly, especially at the pro level and that elite level. They sort of have it down to a science. So it's like so hard to tell sometimes, you know what I mean? And then I got Cedric number 5. That could sort of change. So hard with Cedric. He's a wild card. Obviously Arnold's a show. He does really well here. Poses really well here. They really like him. You know what I mean? So like I said, a lot of these guys, you never know. Any given Sunday, right?
That video impacted me, I tell you. And I'm a guy who says don't look at videos, don't look at photos. But I just watched it over and over and over, and I said something doesn't seem right. And that, in addition to the fact that it has seemed that Roelly has looked sharper his second show around, and once he's done a show or two, there's guys who that has happened to in the past, and if that's their MO. So I had Roelly as the front runner and the winner going into this thing, and I actually changed my mind, and I had Bonac second. I now have Curry coming out as your 2019 Arnold Classic winner, with Bonac second, Roelly third, Josh Lenartowicz fourth. And the only reason I don't have Josh higher is what I think when you take over a year off, I've seen a lot of times it's hard. He always comes in hard in condition. When it's been that long and you've added a lot of muscle and you've been away from it for a little while, I want to see you come back with that conditioning before I assume that you're going to be peeled back. I've seen it happen more often than that the guy isn't at his peak conditioning. So that's the only reason I've got Josh fourth. Otherwise, I think Josh is as good of a chance to be fighting for the top 2 spot as anyone. And the fifth hole, Kuklo. I love Cedric, probably one of my favorite physiques. Just up and down, up and down, up and down. You know, one show Cedric looks phenomenal, and next show you're saying, what happened? So I'd just like to see more consistency out of Cedric. This is his show, though. This is correct me if I'm wrong, Jose. Doesn't he say oftentimes that the Arnold is more important to him than the Olympia?
Yeah. And I think he's gonna bring it. I saw some footage of him posing on his front porch about 2 weeks ago, and he looked sharp as hell. He looked great. I mean, obviously, he can be a little tighter, but that was 2 weeks out. And he's one of those guys who the last day gets drawn in nice and tight. He's massive, 280 pounds. I don't doubt that he can come and win it again. No doubt.
Such a pretty physique. It's so easy to be a fan of Cedric. He's got a phenomenal looking physique. Like you said, his stage presence, his posing, he puts on a great show. At the end of the day, guys, this is entertainment, isn't it? It's entertaining. Absolutely. So who's a wild card or a long shot that you're looking forward to see?
I think Luke Sandow, just because he has the size, he has a pretty complete physique. It's sort of just if he can get bone dry and really get like granite hard, you know what I mean? I think he could upset some people.
Jose?
Well, my dark horse would be Kuklo, because I named off 5 and I didn't name him, and I do think that he's capable of standing toe to toe with all these guys. If he's like he was in was it Indy last year? That was a pretty nasty Kuklo.
Yeah.
And
it was terrible lighting too, but he looked.
Yeah. He was big, hard, complete. He's very, very complete, very impressive. So, he's just got to bring it. And if anyone remotely slips, he can bang up there to as high as 3,
I would love to see one time in a major show like this with other huge talent and big names, I would love to see Akeem Williams come in the type of a conditioning that he did. I want to say Tampa.
Toronto.
Yeah, thank you. But also Tampa. So now it's 3 years removed. But yes, Toronto's up. I want to see that conditioning standing next to all these guys we have, what we're considering in a top 5. I want to see Akeem Williams standing next to them, bone dry and peeled back. That is some impressive shape and just slabs of muscle everywhere.
I want to see him and Roelly. That'd be impressive.
There you go. There you go. But again, something we don't see very often. So we're hoping. Guys, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys next weekend. We'll all be there. We're going to be giving them up to the minute report on every single thing they could possibly be asking for. Pre-show interviews, all the social media wrap-ups. We'll be putting out the content immediately as it's happening. The videos, the photos, post-show. Jose, again, we're really happy to have you aboard. Nate, we're happy to have another year together. We'll see you guys in 8 days.
Beautiful.
It'll be a fun one.
Good.
Absolutely. Till next time, guys. Mandus Buckle, Maximum Muscle Report, Jose Raymond, Nate Spear. We will see you all in a few days. Until next time, we're out.